All right. Hi, everyone. This is Kevin and Carista with Franchise Empire. Welcome to the newsletter this week. Tarek is actually on vacation today, out of office. So you are stuck with me and Carista today. But just a little background on us. We actually are involved in quite a few things in the Franchise Empire team, but our main responsibilities are heading up the brokerage division, where we help our clients find opportunities to explore and help through the validation process with those franchises. So Chris and I actually write up all the sections of this newsletter every week, so we're very familiar with what's
Well, not
going on.
all of them. Not the
Yeah.
first part, right?
Yeah, not all of them, I guess, but the main sections of the newsletter. So we'll walk through these today. I'm happy to have Krista here because she's like the mastermind behind all this. She reads through tons of FDDs and is very knowledgeable about all the franchises that we work with. So Krista, happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So let's go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so today, this first initial blurb is what Tarek always writes about. You can feel free to read that on your own. But today, we'll go through an existing franchise that's for sale or resale that's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We'll talk about a roofing business that we really like that Krista will walk through in detail. We'll give a client case study and then also talk about the most recent episode of the Franchise Empire podcast. So if you guys have any questions, we encourage putting them in the chat. We'd love to have some questions come in that we can answer along the way. And if you are interested in signing up for the actual email newsletter, you can go to www.franchiseempire.com/newsletters. You can see at the bottom of the screen here. So let's just dive right in today. So I'm going to cover the featured resale. This is Closet Factory. We've talked about Closet Factory before, but it's one of the strongest, purely from an item 19 financial disclosure standpoint. It's one of the strongest franchises that we have in the inventory. So Closet Factory, they do closet and home organization, both inside the home, garages, and then they also do like office spaces. So think of all like those fancy like pantries or like closets you see or other organizational spaces within the home. That's what Closet Factory does. They've been around since 1985, very well established. I think there's a typo here because that is not the correct.
I think that's the paragraph from last week. I realized that too. I think the wrong one got copied and pasted in there.
Yeah, I don't know how that would have happened. That's interesting.
Did you guys talk about Express last week?
We did, but anyways, well, that is not the correct.
Interestingly enough, I have my FDD notes up here. Interestingly enough, they started in 1985 as well. So that's it's actually the same exact year. So there you go.
Okay, so ignore this first paragraph here, but other than the 1985, it's not correct. But Closet Factory, they've been around for a long time. They have huge territories. So usually you would get an entire like metropolitan city as your territory, which is pretty unique. So therefore they do have fewer franchise owners. I think there's around like 70 units throughout the country. So anyways, this particular resale is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The asking price is a 1.95 million. And that includes about 800,000 of assets. So if you were interested in this opportunity, you could sign an NDA and get a list of those assets that would be included, as well as the financials for this business. This particular location has been around since 1993, which is, over 20 years, which is kind of crazy. The owner is retiring. The revenue last year was 3.2 million. So very strong business. And the seller discretionary earnings was around 650,000. So, obviously this is a very well-established, profitable business. They have a showroom and warehouse location already in place and 26 employees. So this is a big operation. They have both full-time and part-time employees. So for this one, because it is, a pretty expensive resale, You would need a lot of capital to get into this. They do require a minimum net worth of 1 million and liquidity of 500,000 to qualify for this particular franchise. But really good opportunity, like we talked about. It's been around for a while. They boast a really high retention rate among their owners. So their average owners have been in business for 17 years, which is kind of reflected on how long this one's particularly been in business. The top quartile of owners have an AUV of 13.2 million, which is just insane. And like I mentioned, they have large territories. But Krista, what did I miss on Closet Factory?
I mean, it's a really solid brand. We really like this one. It's actually part of our case study that we're going to be talking about next here a little bit, but I don't think you missed anything major on this one. And if you are interested in this resale particularly, or any resale at all, you can see on the bottom there, you can go to franchiseempire.com/resales. But we actually did help a couple that came through our system. And if you want to scroll down a little bit, Kevin, I can talk a little bit about Rhonda and Chris here. So they came to us. They actually have a business that they've had for several years. It's second generation, where they are manufacturing for what is it? It's for signage companies. Already were aspect of the business, but they really also wanted something that had like something creative in it. So because Rhonda really likes the creative aspect of it, and then they wanted something that they could be involved in the community and their church and their family. So their daughter, Jade, I believe, was going to also be involved in the business as well. So this one ended up being a really good fit for them. It kind of hit on a bunch of different things that they were looking for. And so, yeah, I think they're probably open at this point. We should probably check in with them and see how things are going. But that was late last year, I believe. So like Kevin said, super, super strong item 19 with this one. We don't always have franchises that can get into the multi-million dollar, revenue that's coming in. So obviously with this one, you would need to have a significant amount of funding or, cash available to get in with this one, but you could it would be cash flowing positive. So that would be something to consider.
Yeah. What was interesting with Chris and Rhonda too is like they were very successful business owners already with a non-franchise business. And, they still came to us because they didn't really know much about the franchising world. And they wanted to educate themselves. And also, they had never, when we did present this, they were like, we never even heard of this before. But like when we started looking into the numbers, they're like, holy cow, this is a really good business. So that's not uncommon. So we definitely work with people from all walks of life and experience. But yeah, when going back to the resale here, if you do check available resales, we can look at, Closet Factory resales in any franchise really for resales available in your area. And, when you do schedule time, you will speak with Krista or I. So, we would be the ones talking to you about those resale opportunities potentially in your market. Let's keep going. So let's talk about the franchise of the week. Krista, share this one if you don't mind.
Yep. Yeah. So the franchise of the week we have for you today is called Best Choice Roofing. I know roofing doesn't sound that exciting. I was kind of hoping that I would have chose a more exciting one for the time that I was actually presenting, but it's a really solid brand. So we wanted to talk about it. And there are a couple other roofing franchises out there, but honestly, they're not as well established as Best Choice Roofing. So technically, they didn't start offering franchises until around 2021, as you can see here, but they started back in 2009. So Wayne Holloway is the current president. This was founded by him in Tennessee there. And so they developed their business. It was going really well. So then they decided, let's make a lot of other locations and start some other like corporately owned locations. So they were not a franchise for a while. They were just doing them in-house. And they grew to over 24 states, over 50 locations in the last 13 years, and then kind of shifted over to that franchise model just a couple of years ago. So a little bit newer to the actual franchise space, but not new in terms of like the history of this brand. So it is a really solid brand. So they, like the numbers say there, they've got 45 company-owned affiliated entities that they disclose in their item 19 that we'll see here, but also, increasing their franchise units as well. I don't think you guys really mention some of those numbers typically, but the total investment range for this one is between 117 and 202. So still not like super expensive to get involved in this one. But it's a roofing company, so they focus on residential. Most of it is residential, but they will do some light commercial as well. So really, anyone that's dealing with hail or wind or has some sort of damage to their roof, those are their customers. And the nice thing is you're going to be working with insurance companies. And so, most people, they just want someone to come out and fix the problem. But a lot of people want a local roofing company. So you don't want to have one of those storm chasers. I don't know about you guys, but Kevin and I live in Nebraska. And like recently we had like huge tornadoes come through here and like hundreds of homes were damaged. And like my phone is still like I'm getting calls every day, and it's like some random roofing company that's not local. They just come into the area, they try to get business, and then they move on to the next storm area. So that's one of the selling points with like Best Choice Roofing is anyone that works with them, you're going to be working with a local roofer. It's not someone that's just going to come and go. But your job is really to just manage the business from a high level. Get out there and networking with other people who can send you referrals. It's going to be speaking with homeowners and gaining their trust and having customer service. It's also going to be managing salespeople. So this one you can really get started with just a couple people, like salespeople, and then you're going to subcontract out the actual roofing itself. And then their financial data. So a lot of it is like their affiliate locations. So like I mentioned, like they've been around for a while. And so a lot of these locations are those affiliate locations. But then as you'll see here, I think there's 4 franchise locations as well that they disclose information on. And keep in mind, like these franchise literally just started a couple years ago. And let's see, franchise 4 is already doing $8.4 million. And they couldn't have started earlier than 2021 because that's when they started franchising. And then franchise 1's got 3.7, 3.5, and 1.5. So obviously the franchises are also bringing in those super high revenue numbers. But the total, average overall is 7.5. So super strong numbers. I mean, average ticket prices for a roofing. I know we actually got our roof done a couple of years ago and it was like 20 grand. Thankfully, we didn't have to pay that. We just had to pay our deductible. But, these are really big ticket, items. So it's easier to get up to those super high revenues. There's the ticket prices right there. So average is around almost 15,000, median, closer to 13,000. But, some benefits, obviously, nothing, you can't avoid storms, like they just happen. And the nice thing is insurance is going to be covering it. So you don't really have to worry about your customer like not wanting to pay you, because they're going to either pay nothing at all or they're going to pay a small deductible. So yeah, like I said, start with minimal staff, insurance pays. We talked about the storm chaser thing. So yeah, I mean, I think I hit on all the main points on this one. So I don't know if you want to add anything about that one, Kevin.
Yeah, I would say the reason it's a lower investment, if we scroll back up here, 117 to 202, is you are subcontracting the actual work. So you're not buying a bunch of equipment and things. A lot of that initial investment is the franchise fee, marketing spend, and then your labor rates for, if you hire salespeople right off the bat. So this is really kind of if you're not comfortable with sales, especially door-to-door sales or managing people that are going to do door-to-door sales, this is not going to be a good fit for you. Because that's what it is about. But if you're comfortable with the sales process and, it has a lot of benefits because you're managing subcontractors where they're having all the equipment and everything, trucks that are needed. So your overhead can be lower. So it can be a really good business model, but I don't think it's probably great for somebody that's more operational focused. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I'd agree with. I mean, this is very sales heavy. Like, and part of their marketing material even talks about like walks and door knocks, and so like it's a lot of like literally like cold calling or someone in a neighborhood going and knocking on doors. So if that's gonna be something that's uncomfortable for you or for you to manage, probably not the business for you. But otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of really great things about it, and I think we love it when centers, because it just staff.
You're cutting out pretty bad, Krista. Like the last 20 seconds, cutting out pretty bad. I didn't understand what you just said, but I think, I think we did a good job covering this one. We did have a question that came in. It was a really good question. I kind of like breezed through and mentioned AUV. And so Jonathan was asking, what does AUV stand for regarding the Closet Factory? It said 3.2 million. Can you answer that question, Chris, or do you want me to go? You answer the question. What does AUV stand for? Oh, I think you're frozen, so I'll answer it. So I'll scroll back up here. What Jonathan was referencing when I stated AUV of 13.2 million. So AUV stands for average unit volume. And that is kind of a franchise specific term in terms of like when you disclose the numbers, when they disclose the numbers in the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, in the item 19 is the financial performance, and it can say the average unit volume for our franchise units is X. And that basically means average gross revenue sales. So that's what that means. And in the top quartile, so the top 25% of the owners in Closet Factory are averaging 13.2 million in gross sales, which is very, very high compared to other franchise systems. You know, you don't really see it getting into the multi-millions for most franchises like that. So when we say AUV, it's the average unit volume of sales for the franchise system as a whole. Thank you for answering or asking that question, Jonathan. So let's scroll to, I think Krista's internet went out, but I'll finish this up here. So the last part of the newsletter here is one of the episodes from our Franchise Empire podcast. It's 4 secret franchise buying strategies that nobody tells you. Really, really good info there. That Tarek talks about, you know, things you need to consider as you're buying a franchise. You know, it's interesting because I had a really, really good check-in with a client that's getting ready to sign with a franchise system today. And they actually, you know, I keep learning things as we go through this industry, but, you know, the particular franchise that they're signing with was actually pretty flexible on a few items in the franchise agreement that I was surprised to hear. So, you know, one of those buying tips that, you know, we continue to add to our playbook as we, you know, work with more and more clients. But I do think there are some nuances in the franchising industry in terms of like when you get to that buying decision that, you know, we can help you with. And maybe sometimes people going on in it as their own on their own would not understand like, okay, there are some opportunity to maybe negotiate some things with the franchisor or ask for some other things outside of the agreement. So I'd encourage you to watch that Franchise Empire podcast show. Krista, are you back?
Maybe. Am I?
Yep, we can hear you. Yeah.
What you were just talking about, Kevin, we actually have, there's like 5 different modules all about the FDD and the franchise agreement and like where you can potentially negotiate with them. It's not necessarily legal advice, but it's just some suggestions and some things for you to talk about with an attorney. And we also have a lot of attorneys that we can introduce you to as well. But yeah, like Kevin said, sometimes it's surprising. They'll actually, you know, be a little bit flexible on a few things. So it's definitely worth looking into.
For sure. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the comments field today. Anything else, Krista, you want to add before we hop off here?
I don't think so. What does Tarek usually do?
You usually just end it. But thank you for everybody for listening in. We appreciate it. Thanks for bearing with Krista and I. And hopefully you enjoyed the this week's newsletter. Tarek and I will be back next week. But everyone, have a great week.
All right. See ya.